That's
That's
one of those first one I want to take.
Probably, yeah, I didn't bring my calendar, so I don't have my.
Eric, what time?
I got a 9:30 class, so
Okay.
we're talking.
You're just showing your face to say, hey.
So I gotta, maybe 10, 20 after 9, I gotta walk out of here to get over there. I mean, they'll wait for me, but, well, they'll wait longer than that.
Am I supposed to be in here? Yeah, no, yeah. It's okay. I thought it was, or you guys weren't made it as a breakout group, right?
What?
You're not made as a breakout group.
I shake my head.
Did you? Yes. I waited for a few minutes.
About 2 minutes, Dr. Goolsby's gonna use the restroom.
Okay, all right. And probably need to talk about where we are. Well, it's been so long. I don't know if you had as much problem as I did, but then I have, pretty new to this negotiations.
I do have a soft spot for the 49ers. That's just because of the general manager.
Yeah. I always liked the 49ers back in the 80s, except when they played the Giants.
You think John Lynch made a difference in that club? Holy crap.
Big time.
Yeah.
They were there like 4-12.
Buccaneers were stupid enough not even to look at them.
I mean, think about it. They didn't panic. They were like 4-12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Garoppolo was they as well. Bunch of those guys now, they're still young too. They're going to be good for some years.
Spelled all different ways.
I got tickets to go see the Vipers.
Yeah.
My wife got me tickets for my birthday.
Who's the coach of that?
Huh?
Who's the coach of that?
I'm not really sure. I don't know anything about it except I was reading some of the quotes, which are kind of fun.
Because there's a couple of coaches that are like, I think Kevin Gilbride, the ex-coach of the Giants, and there's a couple others that are big names. I mean, you recognize the names.
The new rules are fun. They're just completely different. Yeah.
Maybe.
Hello.
Hi. Wondering whose coat that was.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
No, we don't know. Yeah. Oh, that's mine. Oh, I was over
I
there.
thought someone was sitting there.
Thank you.
We were gonna claim it. It was on our side of the table.
I don't get to wear it very often. Yeah.
You guys, Bob, Eric,
Hi,
you
it's very
guys
good.
make sure
Degrees out
nobody
right now.
kills themselves.
Hi,
I spill my coffee, spill it that way.
Yeah. You made it.
We'll take care of it, Carl.
Okay.
I came at 52 and I had some lady going 40 mile an hour.
Did you?
all the way over.
I don't know what was going on, but it took about 15 minutes to get past that.
Probably an accident that they had cleared, but it still took forever.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
People rubber deck. You're like, come on, really? Good work.
Jerry, can you take that stuff when everything? Just
Yeah.
take it back to your office.
Yeah,
Is that gonna head over?
no problem.
See you guys.
And
It's breaking up the leather jackets. No.
Morning, everybody, ready?
Yeah.
Our holidays were good. New Year's,
Busy.
cold. I sent you, I assume you got it, Marshall, some proposals on Friday to you and Graham. Did you get those or no?
I don't think so.
I think I emailed them to you guys, but
Let me, I'll check, but I don't remember.
I've got a few copies here. I didn't print out as many because I did send them around, but let me hand out some of these. It might got caught up in your.
Got caught up in spam possibly,
Yeah,
but
it's
I check
possible.
that pretty regularly though, so. When did you think you sent them?
Friday afternoon.
I think you're right. It's easy that I missed some because I've been so far behind. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while since we met, so try and catch up. What we had committed to try and bring to the
Yeah.
table today was when I emailed you, passed on a couple of these on.
Well, no, these are from, the ones I have are from November 22nd. Because I just Googled your, entered your name and searched. And the latest ones I have are from November 22nd. So did not get anything.
Forward them again to you, my,
Now, that may be what we need to talk about. I don't know, because I opened them at the time, but I haven't looked at them since.
no, not the ones from November. I don't know. I mean, it may be the earlier proposal,
Yeah,
but
okay,
mine on Friday at 5:11 p.m. Emailed you and Graham, but I got the kickback from Graham saying he was still out.
uh,
And I don't know. I can forward them again to you here. You
yeah,
want me
it's
to
possible I
come to you?
deleted it unintentionally, but yeah. If you,
Let me get your email.
yes, Marshall,
I got yours. Let me get
Lauren.
Lauren. I'll copy you both. So
okay.
Lauren, period, Byers, Byers, at Florida, EA.
all right, I'll go ahead and send it to both of you. So you'll have it. I'll hand out some of these paper copies and. Alright, so I only have a few. Let me hand out some of those. We can make copies and stuff. Make sure you have the official copy. I'm just gonna hand them all out here in no particular order.
Well, I don't have it yet,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
I did get your email, by the way, so it got caught up in my spam. I didn't see it, so I forgot mine. I did changes, so I don't have the changes, but I'll let them know. I got it, caught it. Make sure I got your correct email address.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. It's 2 L's on Marshall.
Yeah, .Ogletree, OGLETREE, Florida, EA.org.
Yeah, OGLETRE, right?
Yeah.
See if I can locate this a spam message right in chat.
Caitlin, if you want, I can
Yeah.
give me your,
Yeah, should that be great?
maybe forward it directly
I'd
to you
have to
too.
look at,
Sure, CM VILLE.
I don't think you had my email before.
Okay, I just got spam, so.
CMGILLE.
Probably too many.
Is that ours or?
No, that's one more.
Should be on its way too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in my spam mail.
I should have said at the outset, Dr. Jeanette's not here. He sends his With regards, Dr. Billsby, Dr. Bard is sitting in. He's up in Jacksonville, as I understand. I forget what function he's attending, but I only printed out 10 copies of these since I figured I was emailing them to you guys. You would circulate around, but
Yeah, sorry.
plan didn't
Yeah,
come together. Unfortunately, spam has interfered with us.
well, I got it this time. I probably didn't notice it and deleted it before.
No problem. Friday at 5 o'clock, trying to get things done before the weekend. I know how this goes. It's not the best time. So let me just, for the record, go through just once we hand it out. In order, Article 9.5 is counter proposal on accommodations, continuing conversation from prior session. 9.6 is our counter proposal to your initial union proposal back early last year on course loads. 9.7 counter proposal on overload. 9.8 is counter proposal on summer assignments following continuing on our discussions from a prior session. And Article 12 is our counter proposal to your last counter proposal on rank, where we'll go through it in a little more detail, but we're going to propose a little bit of an alternative timeline for the last proposal. That's the main sticking point, I think, on Article 12. And in Article 13 is our initial proposal to your initial proposal on the various leave provisions. I think maybe one or two of these we had discussed for FMLA, I believe, but not all of them. And I'll go through that in a little more detail. On the Article 13 ones, there were a couple additional changes that I need to make since I initially sent the email on Friday, but I'll go through when we get to them. It's just changes to titles, I believe. So, I don't know if you want to, what your preference is, if you want us to start kind of going through these, or if you have anything you want to hand out or discuss first, or if you want to, it's been a while since we've met, so.
Yeah. Just want to discuss possibly a topic for the next meeting. We're not quite ready today, but there's a concern from our side of the table about the ongoing chairs, department program directors and department chairs. And we think we probably need an MOU, because obviously we're not probably going to have a collective bargaining agreement for the next academic year, completed at that time anyway. And there's some concern about what the stipend should be, and also allowance of overload, taking extra courses with the dean's permission and those type of things. So we have some, we've talked to a lot of the department chairs, but not so much the program directors. And they're obviously different positions. They have different work. So we want to try to build an MOU, and something you guys can be thinking about too, to put that in place so that we would be ready to go for the 2021 academic year. Because I think that's extremely important, and that those people are probably put in place here in the next couple of months or so. And we want to try to get that wrapped up like we did the FMLA MOU, where we know what's happening in that very critical area. So we've worked on it some. We're not ready yet, but basically, if you can start thinking about it with Dr. Jeanette and others on the team, and maybe at the next session, that's something that can be looked at and signed off on, so that everyone's ready. The deans are ready. The president's ready to make those kind of decisions, because I know any given year that some of those positions can change. People can change. People don't necessarily want to take that position any longer, those kind of things. So just our thought. Am I correctly in addressing that, guys? Okay.
And I can tell you, I think we've had some similar discussions. As everybody knows, we had the MOU from last year, sort of the trial run of some of these things, with the idea being to continue to look at it how it works in practice and tweak it. So
Right.
we have the same thoughts. We probably have some tweaks. You guys have some tweaks you want to suggest for next year. And since now's the time where you're starting to look at those functions for next year, I think it makes sense to do it next meeting.
Can I bring up one other thing? We have negotiated in the past about the posting of our hours online as far as our schedule. And Dr. Giannette wanted us to post it the first week of classes. And I, at the time, said, well, that's a problem because we're not getting it able to be scheduled. Well, again, it's a problem because yesterday we got an email from our dean, Dr. Thompson, that said, we can't put them in yet. He's not going to be able to put them in until at least this afternoon. So the first week went by and we couldn't put them in. I've tried to put them in, couldn't put them in. So I tried to do what we agreed to, but again, we would be in violation of what we agreed to because we couldn't put them in because on the administrative side, it wasn't what was supposed to be in the software is not there for us to be able to do that. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention is that, we're willing to try to do that, but we have to be able to do that. So again, that's going to be an issue if we're agreeable to do it, but if we can't do it, I don't want to be, somebody saying, oh, you're in violation of the contract because you're not doing that if we can't do it.
Question, Gary, yeah, and I understand that the system's not going to allow you to do that, but for the office hours, I mean, would it be reasonable that you already have an idea of what your office hours are going to be so that you can make sure that you're communicating that to your students?
Yes.
The first week of
Yes, and
classes?
they're posted, everybody's posted on the office doors and everything, but as far as putting them into the system
Right.
and putting them on our schedule so the dean can approve them, that was part of the agreement was that was supposed to be put into the system the first week. And again, I tried and I know you tried. And so, we were trying, but it wouldn't go in. And then yesterday, Dr. Thompson sent us the email that said, I know some of you have tried and it's not working yet. And you're going to have to wait.
For information, like why can
yeah.
you not do this?
And so I just wanted to bring that point up is we agreed to that, but we're not able to do it. So I just want to make sure that in the future, if we're supposed to be doing that, then we need the system to be able to allow us to do that.
And that's reasonable. I mean, if it's a systematic issue, then obviously we need to resolve the systematic issue.
I will
Again,
say
I
no-
just bring that up.
Hopefully today.
Let you
No,
At
it's
least
good to
nobody
know,
held
I think,
us
so
to
we
it.
can-
I mean, everybody knows that the system doesn't let us,
Yeah.
so it's not a thing, but.
Well, they may want to change the date on it because they're still entering. Courses are changing that first week.
Right.
Right.
And I'm
Courses
not
that-
blaming you all, and I know you have work to do, and you got to get things in to be able to do that. But we need to make it workable so that you guys can get your work done, and then we can do it. And I just don't want to have something that we can't do. And so if that week is not workable, maybe we need to go back and renegotiate that and make it, the middle of the second week or something. Because I want to be able to allow you to do your job and allow us to do our job so that it's workable. So if you're going to need a little more time every semester to put what you need to do into the system, then we maybe need to go back and look at that week. Maybe that's not feasible. So
So I'll have to look, I just need a point of clarification because you're saying it's systemic. Is it systemic procedurally because the schedules are still being inputted, or is it systemic because the system itself, you mentioned software and system, is not allowing for that?
Gary, and you're referring to the work schedule, correct? That we
Yes,
enter.
the work
So
schedule.
In my
typically, what I know in our health programs, I tell them do not even enter it during the first week because on Friday, the system, if there's purges or something like that happens, then it changes sometimes that work schedule. So we don't even enter it until the beginning of week 2. So you're correct. It doesn't matter. It will change your work schedule that you enter in on that week 1.
So I went in on the
sometimes.
weekend thinking like, okay, it
Like
changed
on
on Friday.
They always
But
recommend.
Apparently that
after
didn't
the
work
first
either.
week. So
because I tried Monday
like
morning,
beginning
it
of
was like,
next
nope.
week, everything should be settled. It
And
wouldn't
that's
change
something we need to.
Or
look
Tuesday
into.
morning.
And also we need to compare it to our new ERP.
Yes, I
See if it
yes,
will
I know.
be a problem, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I don't care one way or the other.
Your office hours?
Hold us to it.
Yeah, I just don't want to be held accountable for something I can't do.
It's a computer issue.
Let me, it's not an issue until next fall, right? At this point, since it's already happened. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think there's plenty of time
Yeah, I
that they can try to implement it. But I guess what Gary's saying, if there is a problem, we all agree to waive that particular provision because it's not possible to do. I mean, that's all I think we're saying over there, right? Yeah. Okay.
And in the future, let's get it so that it's workable for everybody. And so if we can't do that the first week, let's make it the middle of the second week. That's the requirement to get it in by, then it works well for everybody. So, I mean, we just may need to revisit that before we finally sign a contract so that we're not in violation of it when we can't do it. Okay. So thank you for letting me bring that up.
All right, Brian, you want to talk about some of these? I don't know if you need to talk about everyone, but the ones that you think are more like, I know we've talked a lot, some about 9.5, and that's not a whole lot of stuff there, but 9.6 looks like pretty,
Right, so 9.6, this is our initial proposal to your initial proposal, so we haven't talked, I don't think, at all about this. You know, we are in C, we do not want to put in the contract all of the various definitions and whatnot for the types of courses offered. We don't have any problem putting in here the kinds of courses we're offering, but as to the specifics of how the course is taught, things like that, a lot of that we feel is management right provision or stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be in the contract itself. So to the extent that we want an article on that, you know, our proposals is simply list out the types of courses offered. An article, just going in order here, 9.7. We try to continue discussion on subsection C to reach some sort of compromise on distribution of overload. Same thing I think we have with the summer. You can see obviously what our proposal is, that we'll consider these the criteria, but not necessarily the strict, as strict as your proposal was, the priority of it. Full-time faculty though would still be given priority over the others that are listed, obviously adjuncts. And sort of the same thought with Article 9.8, summer assignments. Our main changes that we're willing to do priority for the full-time faculty, but not strictly by seniority. On subsection D, there was a lot of discussion about the contact hour versus credit hour, and frankly, where we landed on that was still needs to be probably a lot more discussion about it. So trying to work at least some language that fits what we're trying to do now without necessarily putting that issue to rest. Something like D, we just came up with for office hours. You get one office hour for the course you're teaching, basically, is the expectation. And just eliminate the whole 3 credit hours versus contact hours. I think that some of that you guys had suggested. Not to say we're not open to continuing that larger discussion about credit hours versus contact hours. The Article 12 is the big changes. We've proposed an alternative timeline to your timeline, and we thought the best way of doing it was to sort of put this chart in there. So in the track change version, it reads a little unwieldy, but essentially it lists by year and semester the various tasks that we would expect you to have done, as opposed to having the specific dates or weeks, things of that nature. It's a little more flexible. I no doubt want to talk further about that, but we did not view that as a huge change from your timeline. It's just a little more flexibility. The other things that we did not agree to. One of the your change on page 3 of the handout. It struck through language, I believe is what you proposed last time. On the, just to go back to on page 1, sorry, on subsection A, this change, what we're trying to do is a compromise. You may recall, Marshall, last time we had a little bit of discussion about whether or not you should get an additional 1 year beyond the 5 years or 2 years. And my recollection of the union's point was under the regulation, when you really, it talks about 7 potential years. We read that a little differently as to whether or not you have to. So compromise is, I put in there just whatever the law is based on, unless additional time is mandated by law. So if it fleshes out over the years where 2 years is the minimum you have to allow, then the contract will be in accordance with that. We don't think it is, but I could see it being read both ways, frankly, the regulation, and we could not find any guidance beyond that. We're hoping it's not ever an issue, quite frankly, but to try and keep it consistent with whatever that regulation, however it's interpreted, that's the language we came up. Instead of referencing 1 year or 2 year, we just, whatever is required by law, essentially.
Just a question on page 3, the seminar thing issue. Just curious, why is that more important than actual experience doing the work?
Well, I don't know that it's more important. I think we view both as important, but the course wouldn't necessarily be a substitute for that, or the experience wouldn't necessarily teach what the course teaches you, I think is. You guys chime in.
That's the thought there is, and depending on which institution that the faculty member may be coming from, just the experience of teaching in a classroom would not necessarily be the same as the course content of those courses. And we believe that the course content is still important and essential.
Where are those taught, the seminars?
It can be done 2 ways. It can faculty member may take those courses at the graduate level. I think USF offers those, or we do them internally as well at the non-graduate level. They are offered as needed here within the college.
Okay.
They are eligible for tuition reimbursement under the policy for tuition reimbursement.
Any questions? Up to this point, anybody?
The Article 13, we try to,
I do. For the general provisions at the end of the timeline, do you see any type of policy in terms of a timeline for notification? I see it's all stretched out. So for a faculty were to be looking at this and trying to figure out what their timeline is, when they're going to get approved, or if not, what do you see that looking like?
referencing page
I'm
8.
sorry, yes, page 8.
Page 8. Right.
You want to speak to it?
Jarrell, I believe we have a policy right now that requires we notify any faculty whose contract's not going to be renewed by a certain time frame. Is that not correct?
I believe so. I don't know the exact date offhand, but.
I could be wrong, but I believe that it usually allows for at least a 30-day notice. But I know that we have that, it's in an IMM or by memory, I'm not sure which one.
Was that something that we could review?
we can certainly take a look at that current policy that we have and see what that is, and we can talk about that at our caucus.
Has that been discussed? This article is about continuing contract, but has that issue been discussed? And again, not having been here during many of the discussions about the non-renewal of just anybody on an annual contract.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to look up here. I thought we might even had that kind of language in one of the proposals. If I'm remembering the right negotiation. I think we have discussed a little bit about annual contracts, and I thought we had an article. I don't know if we TA'd it. When we caucus, I can go back and look at the history of it, because I don't know off the top of my head. But,
Okay, we'll look at that compared to what you've done here and the language that's here. And see. Some of it could be repetitive, but I'm just not familiar with it to know if it is or isn't. So, okay.
So then on Article 13, combine all of these in one, but if we can break them out, 13.1, 13.2, et cetera. If some can be TA'd versus others needing more work. But candidly, what we try to do here is take our existing policies and practices as much as possible and reflect them in the various, which I think in large part is what your proposal, the initial proposal initially sought to do. There are a couple big things that you'll see. The FMLA, we're not comfortable including all the ins and outs of the FMLA. We're comfortable with a section on the FMLA with the broad, big picture. The problem with it is the FMLA, the interpretations of regulations, things get updated, interpreted constantly. And invariably, when we have every single detail in there, within a year, it's outdated, conflicting, causes lots of confusion.
That's a question here.
Mm-hmm.
When there are changes to FMLA, would the college be amenable to providing that information to faculty members when it changes? Or do you, as a matter of course?
We would, to all employees, to let them know what changes have occurred. Yes.
Okay, and that's a matter of course, right? That's process. You're going to do that.
Yes.
Without. Okay.
That's cool.
Maybe a federal requirement too. I don't know if it is or not, but all right. Okay.
I think the requirement federally is that obviously we adhere to it. They don't have any requirement for notification per se, but it would be in the best interest, obviously, of all employees to be aware of those changes. So.
Okay. And we'll talk about that, but I would prefer, since it's not necessarily a requirement, that we would have language to such effect that notification would go to. And I would agree it should go to all staff, but we can't negotiate a contract for the other staff members. So I believe it should be in our best interest and your best interest to have that type of language. We'll talk about it more here, but I think that's important. I do understand what you're saying here, but I do think people aren't going to know that it's changed, and they're going to expect it's going to be like their colleagues was 6 months ago. And if it's not, they need to. And I'm not saying everybody will read it, but at least you can say, "Look, it changed, and we told you about it." And I think that's important for the union and important for the administration as well.
Well, I tend to agree with that. Obviously, the only concern I have from that is that sometimes the law changes and it takes a little time for it to be comes to the attention and fixed and whatnot. You still have the legal obligation to provide it almost immediately, but whether or not policies get updated as quick as we'd like, we'd love to have it happen.
I understand. Well, there's some, caveat language to that effect.
Yeah, certainly, certainly, particularly if we're updating the policy, it's got to go out to everybody, it seems to me. So I don't know if we have any big heartburn with putting something like that in the contract.
Okay.
If we can regress just a quick second, just to make sure that I give clarification, it is 4 weeks prior to, according to to your question regarding the timeline, it's 4 weeks prior to the end of the contract for the existing policy.
You're talking about the annual, non-renewal annual?
Non-issuance of annual contract.
Thank you.
And the contract renews, is it August 1st? The renewal date of a contract is what, August 1st usually?
Is the beginning of the next academic year.
Okay, so the first
But
week of
this one-
August or second week of August.
But this one is saying by the end of the contract, so it actually be for
June.
the next spring. So whatever the time, technically your contract ends.
30 days before that.
That's correct.
Okay,
If you look at your work days and the contract.
Somewhere around
Cool.
the beginning of
in other
April.
words, people would have the summer to look for a job in that
That's correct.
case, so, okay.
Okay, so it says 4 weeks,
Prior to-
meaning
Right.
28 days, right?
It just says 4 weeks.
Right, right, no, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for looking at
No
it.
problem.
And it does make a big difference too, if it's the end of the, like, the end of the contract is in May as opposed to the beginning of the next year, it's a big difference, so thank you for looking that up.
And we would not want to be in a situation, a similar situation as an institution, to where a faculty member has been out all summer and we anticipate the return, and then all of a sudden,
Good point.
there's a question of whether or not they're gonna return. So that this, this.
The hiring process takes a long time on both sides, exactly.
Let me point out a couple of revisions in Article 13 that didn't make it into the document, so if you could maybe make a note. On the second page, unfortunately, the page numbers on this, under personal leave, section 13.3B. The end of the first sentence says approved in advance by the president. If we could add to it, approved in advance by the president, chief academic officer, or division dean.
Chief academic officer.
Or division dean, so you don't have to necessarily get approval all the way up to the president. And one other similar change under extended medical leave, 13.5. Subsection